Okay, so we have kind of touched on starting off with a brand new agent. You were able to see how I built it with the embedded Copilot. You could also skip that configuration and do it manually. For instance, in this case, I made this Microsoft Personal Shopper agent just by configuring it manually. And it only has 3 configuration points that you need to worry about to start this next chapter. A name, so that's 4 if I count the name, which is Microsoft Personal Shopper and your name in paren. Then you have a description, a personal shopper for the purchase of Microsoft hardware. And then you have this brief instructions, which is simple: assist users in purchasing products on the Microsoft.com website. Use line breaks and bullet points to clarify answers. When discussing products, include the product name, description, and price. So again, focusing on understanding how to use instructions, which we also have talked about before. Next, you will add the knowledge source, https://microsoft.com. So if I suggest you try and build this very simple agent, either using the embedded Copilot or using the skip to configure and fill in the blanks. I challenge you to do that without looking at the notes. But if you get stuck and you think you need a reminder, in your students' assets, you will see the instructions on how to build this agent. But give it a go before you look at the instructions. I know you can do it. All right. So now that we have this, we're going to talk about some default topics and a little bit more on the custom instructions. All right. As you can see here, we're telling it to use line breaks and bullet points to clarify answers. And this is because sometimes you just get a paragraph back, right? You'll also see that my welcome message may look different than yours. And that's because the out-of-the-box welcome message is a little lengthier and it uses a system variable. We will talk about variables very soon in these chapters, but for now, suffice it to say, there is a variable for the agent's name. And so if you just click on what you see in that text panel, it will open up a topic for you called Conversation Start. Every single agent gets this topic. And it is the topic that is triggered on Conversation Start. So each topic has a trigger. What triggers this? The conversation has been started, okay? And so this, whatever happens after this trigger, is what will always happen each time the conversation is started. All right, you can always do any number of things at this point. I'm going to keep it simple today and show you that you can click inside of this area here and completely change it. In other words, it's just text. However, yours, when you see in the beginning, it has a system variable. So I'll put it back so you can see that I also can replicate what you see on your screen. There's a system variable called bot name, and that's what yours is using. Now, why did I delete it and just put I'm Microsoft Personal Shopper? Because I didn't want it to show Audrey in parens. All right. And you'll notice in yours that it says your first name in parens because that's part of the name. So it's very easy just to come in here, treat this like a text box of any kind, and make it say whatever you want. I usually like to take out the words about if you used a website or something. Keep it simple for now. The other thing you might like to do at this starting point that is completely in your reach right now, even as a novice agent maker, if you click the add here, you can suggest things to your user, like such as a quick reply. If I do quick reply, you'll see that I'll get a quick replies property panel. I'm just going to click add, and you'll see I have one required field. I'm not going to worry about the others. They're pretty obvious. Type is send a message, makes sense. Text is what we want them to see. And then we could give it a title, but I don't need any of that. I'm just going to use the required property text and say What are the latest Surface Pro laptops? Okay, so that's the first one, and you'll see it pop up here. I could add another. And again, I'm focusing on the required property. What Xbox consoles do you have? And then when I click away, so you'll notice that sometimes you have to click away for the red to disappear. Then you'll hit save, and you'll wait for it to save that topic. And now you'll see the 2 quick replies there. And if I refresh this test panel, which will refresh it for my changes, you'll see the 2 suggested utterances there. And this is useful when you want to guide your users to something they may not even think to ask about. Now, another thing I'm going to point out is here in the 3 dots in your test panel, I'd like you to click on track between topics and make sure that that is turned on. It's a toggle switch. This way, when things are done in this panel, we can see what was triggered. Because basically, you're going to trigger one of 3 things. You're either going to trigger a knowledge source, or you're going to trigger a topic, as we did here, or you're going to trigger an action. And we'll have a whole module to double click on actions later on. All right. But you always want to kind of keep track as a maker as to what you're triggering. All right. So I did that, and I'm going to go now click on topics to show you a few more system topics. So if you click on system, you will see that these are topics that are built in to your agent. Every agent starts out with these, and you will have a document you can review that we're going to share with you that goes through all of them, so you'll have time to think about them. But for the sake of simplicity on this particular video, we've looked at conversation start, and we're going to look at one more. So the way I'm going to help you look at this other one is I'm actually going to select one of these 2 suggested questions. So I'm going to suggest, what are the latest Surface Pro laptops? And you're welcome to try the other one at your computer. And notice that on the left, what we have triggered is on unknown intent. What does that mean, unknown intent? So often when it comes to dialogue management in an agent, you are managing the dialogue of intent through topics. Okay, if you've ever used other chatbot type tools, you were developing topics or dialogues that would manage the flow of the conversation. So when it identifies there is a topic that we want to use, then it will start there. But if it sees no topic and no action, then it will actually go to this particular topic, which is conversational boosting. And it is configured out of the box to pass the prompt to the AI so that the agent can summarize the response and give it back to you. All right. You can adjust this configuration, but for now, I just want you to realize that since we had no topics that would reflect Surface Pro laptops, this is why it went to conversational boosting. Now, on the other hand, let's do something together here real quick. Let's add a new topic. Simply put, we're going to use the Xbox topic. And I'm just going to do it from blank and type Xbox here. And I'm going to add some phrases in here. These are trigger phrases. What might they say that should trigger this intent? Like, got something to do with Xbox, right? So they might say Xbox. They might say, I'm going to add a few more here. I'm going to put Xbox consoles. And usually you want to target about a dozen. And you'll put as many as you need to. But the key thing here is I want you to recognize that it's looking at these phrases to see if it can identify this intent. And this will help you understand why we went to unknown intent before, because we couldn't find a topic or an action that could identify this intent. So it went straight to conversational boosting, which enables it to answer just about any question using just generative AI. All right. So now that we have that set up, let's just put a message here to let them know about our new Xbox store. Okay. So I'm not going to type it all out, but did you know about our new Xbox store? And then you might put details about that store in this message. Okay, so I'm going to save that. And basically what I'm saying to you is we're kind of trapping intent. We're trapping the intent. We're saying, oh, wait, when they say Xbox, I don't want them to go straight to Gen AI. I don't want them to get a generated answer right away. I'd like to do some things first. Maybe I want to notify them of something. Maybe I want to collect some additional details. It could be any number of things that I'll need to do to make sure that we get the right prompt if we need a generated answer, or to handle an action or a transaction on my end, right? Where the maker's managing that. All right. So I'm just going to reset my test panel just to clear. And so we can try again. I'm going to go back to the overview page just so that you can see how this starts on the overview page. And then I'm going to click this. Now remember, because I have track between topics, we can tell which topic is triggered. So I click here. And there we go. It triggered that topic and it did the things in that topic. So no matter how many nodes I had added in here, messages, questions, adaptive cards, HTTP calls, flows, whatever it is I might want to add in this topic is going to occur after that trigger, right? And it will occur in the sequence that the nodes are placed in. Okay. So, however, notice that if I reset again, and I click on instead Surface Pro laptops, we did not configure a topic for Surface Pro laptops. So it goes to unknown intent. Conversational boosting takes over. Because there's a generative answer node in conversational boosting by default, it will automatically go take that text that I typed as the activity text. And that is also a system here. This activity text is a system variable that represents what was typed last in the conversation panel. And now it'll pass that as a prompt to the AI, and the agent will summarize the response. Okay. But even conversational boosting, I don't recommend you do this. So listen up. Don't change this right now. Okay. But I do want you to know that you can add things in between here. So you can customize your conversational boosting. And I will show you at least one way to do that now. But I would be careful because these system topics are configured with best practices in mind. All right. So let's go back to our custom topics, and you can always tell the difference. These are the system topics, which is like if I pull this out, well, if I hover, this is conversation start, and this is conversational boosting. There's also end of conversation, escalate, fallback. Your student assets will have resources so you can learn about these different system topics. Anything you create will be listed under custom. And the reason there are custom topics already there is that they're considered helpful topics for the average agent. You don't have to use them. You can always turn off topics even that you don't want to use. But I would suggest you get comfortable with the reason for them before you start deleting and turning things off or revising them. All right. So the last thing I want to show you is that with our Xbox topic, let's say I want the answer for our Xbox questions to only come from a certain part of our Microsoft.com site. And I go to Xbox. You'll notice it has its own URL path. This probably isn't typical in every site. Like I said before, the Microsoft site is complex in nature. But I can say, I want you to get the answer for the Xbox questions from this site. So I can go back into the topic for Xbox. And if you noticed before, when we were doing the conversational boosting, there is a node called Create Generative Answers. You may use this node anywhere you'd like. So let's say I'm going to go back to the Xbox topic, and I'm going to add that node. So instead of this message, which I'm going to delete, I'm going to add a node for generative answers. If you notice the way I did that, I clicked on the little plus sign to get my nodes to show up. Then I went all the way down to advanced, and the very first one is generative answers. So I'm going to select that one. And then what I want to be the input or the prompt is that system variable I showed you a minute ago called activity text. That is what the user has typed, and therefore this will be passed, all right, as the prompt. We can most definitely use formulas, variables, and other things to prefix, suffix, or completely revise the prompt. But for now, we're going to stay very simple and just keep what they clicked. Okay. In the case of Xbox, it was the question about consoles. All right. So we're going to edit the data sources though, because by default, this points to your knowledge. Okay. So I want to hit edit. And I just want to point out that if you had multiple knowledge sources, you could most definitely specify which of them should be used for Xbox. And you can turn on this toggle switch, which will show you all of your knowledge sources, whether they be sites or documents or tables. And then you can use a checkbox to select the ones you'd like to be used for this question. That's not what I want to do here. I'm going to leave that toggle off, and I'm going to open up Classic Data, and I'm going to paste that Xbox site into the public websites area. Okay, I've pasted it into the public websites area. And as you notice, you could also use SharePoint sites. You could also use OpenAI on your data. You can even use your own custom data. And we'll talk about that when we get to more complex scenarios. For now, I just want you to understand this is where you go to specify. In this case, I want you to use this site. Don't forget to hit the little plus sign, which will actually add it. And then once I hit save, you'll see it'll show up here. Okay, so it says public website 1. Okay, so when it answers this question, it's only going to use that public website as opposed to your knowledge. All right, it will still, however, use your instructions on your overview page. These are retained, but here we're specifying knowledge choices. All right, so we are now in conversation start. We're going to click what Xbox consoles do you have, which will trigger our new topic Xbox. It's going to pass that prompt that the user said to the public website xbox.com. What we're going to do next is talk about how we can be even more specific with what pages we want to use on what sites where, and we'll do that using something called Bing Custom Search in the very next chapter. I look forward to talking to you then.